So now we can open, to the floor to questions. And we do have some questions on chat, and you can keep asking and typing away. But I think it's also possible uh, to have people ask questions. You can turn your mic on and ask questions. So what we'll do is probably, if you have a question, maybe use the icons to raise your hand, and I'll acknowledge you, and then we can have you ask your questions live. You still have all our panelists here. Actually, before we go to those questions, maybe I'd like to ask Mercy Abad. We did present a video, and I understand there were some audio issues for the video. It was nice and clear on my end, but I thought it was transmitting well. But there is a link that Richmond posted, so everybody can click on that later on and copy it and watch it on YouTube. But I had a question for Mercy about ASHI, just in terms of the model, which we know is the microfinance model. Essentially, you're giving out loans to poor families, primarily to the nanays, to the women. One question is, you said that the maximum amount was 100,000 pesos, and I guess that's after several years of success. But initially, what was what's the typical loan amount that you give out to the nanays? That's one question. And then can you comment on, the nanays being the ones receiving the loans and running the businesses, as opposed to the tatays?
Yeah. Actually, we give 5,000 for the first loan, but some of them find it too big and too daring, so they prefer a smaller amount. And then we make sure that the payment per week is not going to affect their quality of life. Now, why the nanays, not the tatays? Because really, it's more than just giving a loan. Microfinance is more than just giving a loan. It's also liberating the person from the prisons that's holding them now. So who best to free but the nanays, for the financial handlers of our homes, and who take care of children. As Father Nebre said, the children are the future of our country. So we really concentrate on the nanays. And you can see that that is that's a wealth that our country has not mined yet, no? The women force, the talent of the women, and their functional competence. It's really amazing. I'm amazed at what they have shown us.
And
but actually, but actually we're already starting to work with farmers now, because the men started complaining, why the nanays only? So we're now starting to work with small-time farmers and putting them together so that we can go over the middlemen, and we go directly to the big business people who will take care of the farmers. That's another story, so I did not talk about it anymore. I just concentrated on the nanays.
Thank you, Mercy. There's a few more questions that we'll go through on the chat. But like I said, I think there's really a chance for us to be more directly involved. So if you want to raise your hand and ask a question of our panelists, please go ahead and do that, and I'll acknowledge you. So one question, this is for Father Ben from Al Serafika. Very excellent work, Father Ben. How can we make the operation more sustainable by using more technology? For example, urban vertical farming. and having income generating aspects like extending services of the cocina to serve paying customers like the parents that will sustain the operation of feeding little children. More power to you and GK.
Well, we do use technology. We have a team in Ateneo de Manila led by Dr. Eden Bureau, which are basically we use cell phones to gather data so that in all the kitchens they can input both the data of the feeding, but also the data about the children. And we use that to analyze things. That's about the use of technology. But as far as urban farming, that's really more middle class. The very poorest are not into that at all. So that reaches certain groups, but it's not at the level for the very poorest that we deal with. Because Gawad Kalinga is very focused very much on the poorest. Shall I from Mayor Tolosa? Gawad Kalinga is not a Catholic organization. It comes from Couples for Christ, which was a Catholic organization. But Gawad Kalinga now is basically an organization to serve the poor. And a lot of our work right now is in Muslim areas. My main concern right now is Marawi and Lanao del Sur. Just this morning, I was connecting with the DepEd Marawi because we just supplied face shields for them. So Gawad Kalinga is really an organization right now that is focused on poverty, and it is no longer part of Couples for Christ, which was a Catholic organization. And about family planning, we work with our communities work with the government in this area.
Thank you, Father Ben. I guess while we still have you, one question from Dr. Subade. Now that feeding the poor children is a government program, now that it's a government program, how is this being done? And is there any coordination or collaboration between GK and the government? And I don't know if that means local government. Is what you explained, or
the government mode is basically through the Department of Education. The funds go to DepEd Central, and then they're dispersed to the divisions and down to the schools. So that's the default mode. It's the school that implements. But the problem, the problem with that default mode of the government is that then the principal and the teachers are burdened with handling the school feeding. And so it actually affects their teaching and their other work. And that's why Gawad Kalinga has worked with, as well as Ateneo and the Olivi Foundation. We've tried to get the LGUs involved, the mayor involved, and so that we can organize volunteers and so on, so that we free the teachers from having to tackle cooking and serving, aside to their many other duties. So we try our best to work with that, and that's the way Gawad Kalinga works with we work with the mayors, basically. We try to work with the mayors and the Department of Education for that. The challenge we face right now is in the pandemic is that how to reach the children. And that's the challenge that we face. And right now, DepEd is finalizing the mode, and we're hoping that DepEd has decided to go with food packs, and we're trying to see how to help them with that. So like GK is volunteering to set up a system for delivery of food packs.
Thank you, Father Ben. And just full
family
disclosure,
education, GK is not into that, but we do cooperate with the government if needed in this area.
thank you, Father Ben. I think this is Abad. Mercy, you want to comment also on that?
On family planning, yeah.
Yeah.
The sad part really is the very poor cannot afford to buy condoms or even maintain pills. The government must provide those. So, like for example, we've taught them natural family planning, the method being taught by Bishop Ledesma with the use of parang rosary beads, no? So they can count, they don't have to look at the calendar. But that works only if the husband is regularly at home. If the husband comes home once every week or once every month, it does not work. So it has to be a government initiative if we are serious about family planning. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think we need all the input, especially if people working on the ground and understanding the issues. I have a question for Dr. Mangahas. Um, I think Edsel Peña was also asking about this, about government and certain administrations. You've been around for many administrations since the 80s. And it seems like some administrations use the data, or at least listen to the data, or listen to you, and some administrations don't. I guess the question is, do you have any examples of cases that very clearly the government looked at the data that SWS was putting out and made a policy shift or some government action, which then changed the results of the surveys? In other words, a before and after that was clearly because of the government listening to SWS and using the data.
I still have to think, we're happy already if we're listened to, but we don't keep count of changes. We can't say we're responsible for any particular changes. I'm very happy people say they're worried about hunger. That's okay. We're looking at that, but then I said, so why doesn't the Philippine Statistical Authority get into the act and start doing it also? Why is everybody depending on us to do it? You see, mm-hmm. I think that everybody should get into it and not kind of take us for granted that we're going to be doing it all the time. Well, we feel that if we can't stop it, of course, if we must continue. But there are many things that everybody should get involved in, so that there will be more research, and not expecting us to do it all.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Mangahas. Okay, I think Giselle, please go ahead, ask your question.
Yeah, I'll ask a question to each of our outstanding eminent speakers. Thank you so much for joining us today. Father Ben, we are aware that moringa is a high nutrition diet source of our macro and micronutrients. One of our NAST corresponding members, Enrique Estrella, had done a study in Malabon on the correlation between moringa feeding of infants to toddlers or school children in relation to the intellectual development. So Dr. Estrella is with Wayne State, and he's a pediatrician in research. So are you privy to this information, and is there a way for you to conduct such studies directly correlating the physical and mental development of the children? Okay. Second, to Dr. Mangahas, I'd like to know what's the difference in the methods and the thrusts for the surveys used by the PAASE and SWS, and to reiterate the question of whether you think it is your responsibility to advise government on how to address the issues, the political ones, the very important one today that you mentioned. Okay? Why is it that we get these sentiments from the people regarding WPS, and yet we get pronouncements or we get signals from our national leaders that they're now going to try to uphold the thinking or the position of our people. To Mercy Abad, may I ask whether microfinancing might be used to support directly the upgrading of skills and the training of the nanays, so that the income generation would have it will be better. Also, might you consider microfinancing for, say, their children to go into vocational training? So what I'm trying to emphasize here is the ripple effect of training and education, so that rather than just setting up a grocery, or of course we know pananahian is also important. There could be some other ways of improving productivity. And finally, to Mario. So I'm a witness to what Mario has established in Morong, and that's why I wanted to set up this Balik Ka sa Bayan Mo Tayo Na program, precisely because I saw what Mario has done in Morong. Now, Mario, maybe you can share with us also what you're trying to do with the University of Rizal system as an academic institution to help you with your vision and your advocacy, okay? To instill pride in our history and our heritage. Thank you.
Thank you, Giselle. Okay, so that's several questions for all our panelists. So let me see if we can go in order. So to Father Ben, I guess the question was in terms of Moringa and some of these additional studies, is it possible to do those studies at these sites that you're working into? Are you aware of those studies, and are you doing research? I think that was the question for you.
Well, I'm aware of the studies on Moringa, but I'm not myself involved in it, and I appreciate very much my continuing discussion with Dr. Giselle on it. But from the very beginning of the school feeding programs, we always use Moringa. From the time we started around early 2000s with this, because we really believe it helps. In fact, the concern we have right now is that despite the fact that Moringa really is important for nutrition, in general, the Filipino population does not put a priority on planting malunggay trees. In fact, in some places, they cut them down. So maybe, I don't know how we could have an advocacy where we could really tell people that they should plant malunggay trees, and that it really is a very, it's a plant that can provide so much for them, not just the leaves, but the fruit and other things. So maybe that's the need we have right now, is to make it more widespread. I think India is much more into Moringa than we are. That's what I understand.
And I think the second question.
Yeah.
Sorry.
May I just add one other thing? Our understanding of poverty in the Philippines, at least our policymakers, we think of poverty as basically economic. In other words, lack of jobs, lack of opportunities, lack of money. But in the work I've been trying to do on poverty, I've come to understand what Amartya Sen, a Nobel Prize winner, says, that deeper than economic poverty is what he calls a poverty of capability. And he says what gives capability is education and health. And the best way to understand this is that we may have all these foreign direct investments, and we may all invite firms to come in here. But if you invite somebody to come to work and he has tuberculosis or walang pinag-aralan, it will not work. And that's why attending to education of our children and attending to their health is very central to getting out of poverty. Otherwise, we can try to put up factories, jobs, new technologies, but we don't have the people with the capability. So I hope we understand that we have to attend to this problem.
Yeah, thank you, Father. I guess the next question was for Dr. Mangahas. Giselle was asking about again your stance on the responsibility of SWS. I think that was what I got from her question. I don't know if you can recall the other finer points of her question.
Well, thanks, Francis. I have the floor now. I wanted to say three things. First of all, I want to commend Mercy Abad in general, because she's a great pioneer in survey research of all kinds, market research, opinion research, and so forth. So many of us have learned from Mercy Abad up to now, okay? And the face-to-face is really the best type of survey research, and we owe her so much. She has a heritage. Okay. The second thing I want to say is that it's very important to do surveys periodically, and frequently, not just periodically, but frequently. Because of our quarterly work on poverty and hunger, we know that these can change even in 3 months' time. No? Even in 3 months' time, the change can happen, and it's statistically significant. And if you didn't have a quarterly survey, how would you know? This whole business of doing it once every 3 years is hopeless. I think the least that should be done is annual. But when was the last hunger survey of the government? I don't know. 2018, 2019? That's ancient history already. So you have to have periodic surveys, and we do what we can because we don't have so many resources, but everyone should get into the act so that there will be more periodic, even if it's not the same one doing it all the time, but just from the fact that many are involved, there will be periodic data. Now, the third thing I want to mention has to do with feedback, with the feedback from the public, all right, to everyone else, okay? Does it matter? Like the people hate China, but look at what's happening, right? Now, this to me is a big issue of democracy. It's a big issue of government. It's a big issue of accountability. No, this is not to be solved by researchers. It's to be solved by everybody, the people. We all have a role to play. Media has a role to play, Advocacy groups have a role. Politicians have a role. Everybody has a role to play over here. Right? We just do what we can. Actually, we can't complain about media in the sense that we're not throttled. We're not censored. All right, we're not censored. There's so much coming out. We're decently reported. Once in a while, there's a mistake, but we correct the mistake, and sometimes they correct it, and sometimes not. But generally, our message gets out. So this is an issue of democracy, really, of democracy, and we're all part of that, and we must all do what we can within our capabilities, within our influence, and so forth. Right? This is what I tell our staff in this. Just remember that you are always biased for freedom. Not that we're biased. Freedom to speak out. Freedom for the people's results to come out. Now, what happens with that freedom is not our responsibility, It's everybody's responsibility. We're just trying to open eyes, and give real data, not fake, and just keep on doing it. But if people don't listen, well, we all do what we can. We all do what we can. You can pray, right? That's part of maybe a social solution also. Let's don't knock it. The boss up there can do anything he likes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Manahas. To Mercy Abad, the question I think from Giselle was, have you considered or are you thinking about microfinance for the children to do vocational training?
Thank you, Mahar. I was shocked by Mahar's comment because I had forgotten my past life. I'm so consumed and totally taken up by microfinance now. But it's really an amazing work because every family you transform. It's just so gives you that very good that feeling that makes you jump out of bed the next morning. It does work, but yun na nga, we have to be patient because first we have to get rid of their mindsets which are very self-defeating. And I think the biggest goal of microfinance is to liberate the nanay and to give her freedoms that is due her, like freedom to choose, freedom to speak out, freedom to develop herself. And of course, we're aware that there's a lot of violence in that area. And one of her biggest problems is her husband. So anyway, I can talk endlessly about these things, but sure. Then she, because of the help of microfinance, she's able to send her children to school. And so it's going to be generational. The next generation will be much better off. Now she has a college graduate. Then eventually this college graduate knows better and will make her children move out and work whatever and choose whatever they want to eventually become. So, but we have to be patient. In the meantime, we have to release the nanays first from their prisons.
And I just wanted to really say what's really so inspiring. You talked about 87,000 success stories. I think I got that number right. I wrote it down because that was really an amazing result of all the work. Yes, that's really inspiring. There was a question also for you, Mario. I guess Giselle was asking you to expound a little bit on your plans for the University of Rizal system.
Yes, thanks, Francis. So last year, and thank you for the question, Giselle. So last year we launched the annual Francisco and Enriqueta Angeles Memorial Science Lecture in honor of my in-laws who were former science teachers in that school. But we launched it at the University of Rizal system, which has like 9 campuses, because we believe that we really need to do some intervention work in terms of science teaching and research in this university, which has a massive reach. I thought that this is also like some kind of a foot in the door for us to be able to share eventually what we learn from our museum and heritage work. But yes, there's like a plan for it this year. Actually, we invited Dr. Windel Rivera to talk about science writing and publishing, hopefully to be able to influence, or make a dent in terms of the rate of publication, science publication among the faculty, which is really, as you may have guessed, really low. But I would like to just respond to one question from one of our members of the audience about values, like what values can the museum teach? So this is actually from Christy Garzuta Galliano. I can talk about values, like a plethora of values, and there's like a typology of values, but then I believe that a lot of values are learned from the museum or our heritage work vicariously. You know, and one of them is like the respect for the community, the respect for history and heritage. In fact, there's a story about these two scavenger boys who came to us with like some old coins, which they could have actually sold, but instead donated to the museum because they thought that, well, they're valuable. They're valuable for the community. They can earn like some pesos from those coins, but they instead donated to the museum. So we were really so delighted and happy that, oh, what we were doing has effects even to these poor boys who could have like earned from what they found, but instead like donated to the museum. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. You get a thumbs up from Christy. We can open the floor to one or two questions. I think, is Dr. Pernia, are you raising your hand?
I'm raising my hand.
Oh, okay. Sure, please go ahead.
Just a couple of quick comments and maybe a rejoinder. This is to Dr. Mangas, a former distinguished colleague of mine, valued. I follow his columns, you know, his column every week. Anyway, you know, you were talking about the composition of socioeconomic groups, Mahar,
Yeah.
and, by education. But
That's all we
perhaps access to healthcare is also important. And, you know, it's because there's no direct correlation between health and education among families. I think parents tend to neglect health just to be able to send their kids to education. Education seems to be valued more by parents than health. And that's because health is really something invisible, you know, it's not so, it's a long-term thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing is, you know, I wonder if you can have a question on the relationship between the private sector and the public sector, or the private sector, businesses, and government. Because, you know, recently, it seems that there has been an adversarial relationship between the public sector and the private sector. And this is not good because it really deters investment and economic activity from the private sector. So I wonder if, you know, you can ask, what is the opinion of people about how the government should relate to the private sector? To me, it should be a relationship of friendship and partnership, because both are needed for the economy, for the growth of the economy. Okay, and then just a quick rejoinder to Mercy Abad. You mentioned that you know, this family planning thing is well, it's a very important dimension of development, I think, and that's because it has impacts not only on health, but even on the economy. And that is why we had, during my term in NEDA, I had the Population Commission moved to NEDA from DOH, because it had a, DOH had a lackadaisical attitude toward family planning. But in NEDA, we really pushed it hard, and we want it to be related to development planning as well, because, you know, without family, no lack of family planning, especially among the poor, results in so much stunting and wasting of children. And you know how that affects the potential of the children moving as they grow old and as they join the labor force. So, you said that there's not enough support from the government. Yeah, the family planning program is now going on full steam, but it's constrained by the budget. It is underfunded by the government.
Yeah.
There's too many things that the government is, you know, attending to, and you know, there is also this concern about credit rating, you know, and all that kind of thing. Okay, thank you.
Thank
Can
you,
I reply to
Secretary
that?
Peña.
Can I reply to that, Ernie?
Yeah.
Ernie, you know, I really would like to have more data on socioeconomic status. And there'll be more chance to do that when we can get to face-to-face surveying.
Okay.
While it's still on a mobile phone surveying, you know, when you only have 20 minutes and so much to talk about, that will, you know, I can't put that in yet so far. Next, about the relationship between government and the private sector. It's a good idea for research where we would, you know, if we still had our old surveys of businessmen, that would be one of the things I'd like to ask. I will raise this up with my crowd. You know, my business crowd is the Foundation for Economic Freedom. All right, there are lots of people there. Some of them may want to sponsor this kinds of research. You know, this can be done. I mean, I would know how it could be done, but this is not something that I could fund myself from our own resources, SWS. So there are lots of businessmen there, and you know, lots of government officials there. You know, to me, the doing of research, you know, is you know, is also a matter of getting down to saying, okay, I'll pay for that. Huh? I'll pay for that. Then it will get done. Huh? Then it will get done. Do I have a 1-minute story? Can I tell you something? Huh? Francis?
Sure, go ahead.
In August 1987, I got a call from my friend of the Department of Agriculture. At that time, it was Sonny Dominguez. And Sonny said, you know, this military coup attempt is terrible. Can you ask public opinion about it? What do people think about it? It's going on. Huh? The coup attempt was going on. And I said, Sonny, I have a little money in the bank and I can do it, but can you pay me back? And he said, yes, go. And we did, right? And we did. And we discovered from there that the people were against the military coup plotters and that they supported Cory Aquino all the more because she resisted them. And then we were able to report it to the president. And she said, you know, I thought people didn't like me anymore. I'm so glad for that. Now, Sonny Dominguez got me my money back from one of these other agencies. And it took 3 to 6 months before that happened. But I learned from there that if a businessman says, I'll do it, you don't have to have a signature, you know, he'll do it. He'll pay for it. And that's what we need. You know, 2 years later in 1989, there was another coup attempt. And then this time on my own, I called up our clients, 3 clients, San Miguel, Ayala, and Shell. And I told each of them, you want a survey on this? I'll pay for it, each of you, 1/3 of the cost, each of you. And each of them said, yes, go. And on that basis, oral basis, we went and we did it. And again, we found that people were against the military coup attempt. If it's this businessman and they say go, if they go, that's their word is good. But if it's government, I say, oh nako, you know, firmado na nga, hindi pa silang magbabayad. All right? This is a matter of sincerity, you know, and personal integrity. See, and that's how we have to operate. Now, we've done things on our own, you know, and never mind the cost. We paid for it, right? We've done things where we didn't get paid back. All right? I mean, it's part of life. But the ones who you know, really mean something, you know, they'll back it up. Huh? They'll back it up. And that's what we need to do. Don't, you know, you know, I'm so glad that we saved enough so that we are now doing these mobile phone surveys, and paying for the deficit ourselves as it is. And we'll see how much longer we can do it. At least one more round, and I hope two. But if we stop collecting revenue from other sources, how can we do that? You see, so this is all of us pitching in together, and this is not because this is not for profit. We're a non-profit organization, and we're careful about the subject matter that we get into, of course, so that it's not flippant. It's not something that we could say, oh, bakit niyo pa ginawa yun? Sayang lang yung survey question.
Thank you, Dr. Mahas. I think I have time for one more question, and then I wanted to give all the panelists a chance for a last word. Al Serafika has been raising his hand for a while, so I'm acknowledging you, Al. Go ahead.
Thank you, Francis. This one is actually for the first speaker, Father Niebres. Very impressive work indeed. But again, I'm trying to put my arm around what you're doing, because I did speak to Shell Habito about stunting about 3 years back, being part of the USAID project Stride with us. And we've been wanting to use technology for this particular problem, indeed, on growth stunting. And I advised the UST as well on the Food and Nutrition Research Institute. And they just came up with the Nutribun technology, as well as the fortified rice. I wonder whether it has a communication with your efforts in the feeding program, and will it impact, and is it scalable? Thank you.
About the Nutribun, I think because of we're going to open the kitchens. The Department of Education is actually proposing that. But you just have to understand that to ask children to live on Nutribuns every day is a bit tough. No? So it's okay, but as a supplement. The scalability of what we're doing really is very dependent on the LGUs coming in. One, because there is national funding, but to implement it well, it's very difficult for the schools to do it by themselves, because the teachers have to teach and the principals have to govern. So that's why really the work that Ateneo and Gawad Kalinga has been really to get more and more LGUs to come in. Anyway, their contribution need not be very big because there are national funds, but they're providing transportation, they're initially building the kitchen, they're mobilizing volunteers, is really very important. So the scalability of the kitchens that we have is very dependent now on cooperation from LGUs and others. So that's what we've been trying to do. More and more all over. So we hope that will continue. So we're really appealing to LGUs, to mayors, because their role is very, very important in this area. But the other problem really is now how to reach the first 1,000 days, because they are scattered. The mothers and the babies are not in one place. And that's been a very difficult challenge. As I mentioned, there are initiatives, mainly from LGUs. I cited Iriga City, I cited Quezon Province, and of course Malabon. But it's a new frontier. We have not been able to look at a scalable model yet for it. But obviously it's very crucial, because during that period that babies' brains are developing, and malnutrition at that age will create permanent damage. So that is something that we really we're working very hard on, but we need all the help we can get, because it's not, the problem of getting the food to the mothers and the children is very difficult. Maybe we could invite more to look at the Malabon model. It's very impressive. And if more LGUs would tackle that together with the Department of Health, we might be able to scale up the feeding for mothers and babies up to 2 years old.
Thank you. I think that somebody did mention the WIC program in the United States, which is specifically for mothers who are lactating and nursing. But of course, that's administered through their welfare system. I think, I don't know if we have an equivalent capability to do it under DOH, given the problems that they're having already as it is. But in the US, having been there for 25 years, my sister was part of the WIC program when she lost her job. And so I can attest to that, that it might be one of the solutions we can look at for the first 1,000 days. I don't know if we've looked at it already, but just wanted to make it aware that there is a program in the US that we might be able to see if we can localize it here. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. So it's been a really interesting morning or evening. Really inspiring talks. I wanted to give all the panelists one last round, one last chance to maybe give us a closing message, maybe just 1 or 2 minutes. In particular, anything they want to tell the audience. For example, maybe some people are asking, how can we help? How can we be involved with ASHI? Or how can we be involved with Kusila ng Kalinga? How can we be involved with the Morong Museum? So maybe we'll go and give the panelists 1 or 2 minutes or closing remarks and just, parting messages for the audience. I'll start with you, Mario.
Thank you, Francis. Of course, we're always on the lookout for partners, in everything that we're doing. So in case you need people who have experience in heritage project and you want to start something in your own locality, we can perhaps give some advice. But for now, I'd like to just engage people in discussions. And one of the discussions that we're going to have will be on Sunday in the group discussion on social innovation that's still under PAASE. We will be talking about, the many issues surrounding social innovation, and we'll be again using Museum Pambayang Morong and Likas Morong as an exemplar. Not only Museum Pambayang Morong, but we'll also be looking into the Meyerhoff Scholars Program, a highly successful model of a science scholars program here in the US, to look into the possibility of adapting it in the Philippines, because it has been adapted in several universities here in the US, supported by Howard Hughes Medical Institute or the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. So our discussion will have Dr. Cora de Hungria of UP-NSRI, Dr. Ton Clemente of Pambansang Samahan sa Psikolohiyang Pilipino, Professor Joe Junicio, the chair of the Sociology Department, Executive Director of the Meyerhoff Scholars Program, Keith Harmon, Director Cecil Gericami of DLSU Museum in Dasmariñas, and Dr. Tahira Madi of UMBC. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. Let me call on Mercy Abad. Last words, or how can we be involved if people want to help ASHI? And also last words, anything that you want to say to the audience?
Yeah, well, many of us have mindsets about the poor, that they are hopeless or they are tamad. That's not true. All they need is an option. And you know what? It also builds communities. Once you touch the life of a few, then you start building a bigger community. And what happened during the lockdown? I was scared because I thought they might go hungry, since not everybody was really given the funding that the government promised. So I was so surprised because there were very few who went hungry, only those in very remote places. They took care of each other. The centers took care of each other. So I guess that's one of the benefits of working at transforming their mindsets and the way of looking at things. Yeah, it has its special graces. So if you want to, what do you call us, help, you may send your donations. You can always need some help anytime.
Thank you, Mercy. Really inspiring story. Dr. Mangahas?
Thank you, Francis. I want to commend Ateneo in general. Well, actually, the church. This whole. How did we start? We're a spin-off from a committee, the research committee of the Bishops' Businessmen's Conference in 1984. This research committee was chaired by Father Bernas of Ateneo. And well, I and Mercy and others were delegated, to do the first BBC survey, and we did that. And then when I was able to, organize some funds for our first program, Ateneo agreed to be a partner for these funds because I didn't have an organization at all of myself. I had to form one. In fact, that's why we organized in 1985, and on all of that. But so Ateneo became our partner for 2 years, 1986 and 87, and that was our beginning. We have spread the word. I'm happy about Ateneo de Naga, about Ateneo de Davao, about Xavier, and I'm the most happy about Holy Name University in Bohol. All of this we have gone to and helped in establishing, or we didn't establish, but in strengthening their survey capability. So I look at them as our colleagues all over the country who can do this particular kind of work, you see, and that's how we must all help each other, as well as also our colleagues abroad, who help us in all these kinds of things. So what's needed is partnership, sama-sama, kapit-bisig, as they say. I wanted to remember Father Bernas in particular, because Father Bernas is, he's very sick now. And I don't know, how much longer he'll have him with us, but I want to salute him, Father Bernas, my former teacher in Latin, who, you might say, helped us very much in getting started 35 years ago. And the Ateneo as a whole, the Ateneo as a whole. There are some things Ateneo cannot work on because they have their own restrictions. And there are some things UP cannot work on also because it's government, it has no restrictions. So I'm perfectly happy not having a direct affiliation with any university. But of all of these schools, I would say, it's in terms of tapang, ang mga Ateneo, sila ang pinakamatapang, and they go to work on these things. And all over the country, let's help. There are so many academic institutions that can do surveys and opinion polls. Now you have to raise your own money, okay? And when they're interested and sincere about it, they do. And that's part of the work, that's part of the work. That's research entrepreneurship. That's what I learned from my own teacher in Chicago, Theodore Schultz, Research is an enterprise. It requires taking a risk. Let's all do that.
Thank you, Mahar. And finally, the last word, parting message from Father Ben Nebres.
Thank you, Francis. So maybe just two things. One is, how can you help? Well, right now, because of the pandemic and hunger has gone so much higher, we're really trying to raise more funds because the government funds are not enough and they don't reach everybody for school feeding, especially in the poorest places. If we'd appreciate any help, you can contact me. I'll send to the email of Francis knows my email. You can actually send to Francis. Francis is part of Gawad Kalinga USA, and I hope he doesn't mind my mentioning that. Gawad Kalinga USA is actually helping us raise funds for the school feeding. I think Maricel Villanueva, the executive secretary, has on the Zoom link. So if you contact any of us, or even Dr. Giselle Concepcion, because he's been very interested in the work we do in school feeding. I think if you contact any of them, we'll make sure that we contact you on how to help. Everything is appreciated because really hunger has grown so much higher now. and we really need to do something about it. And so that's the first thing. We'd appreciate your help. I just like to make one point because the question of limiting family size, family planning, and problem of hunger are connected. We normally like to think that we begin with family planning and then worry about hunger. But I'll tell you something that we may not realize. Poverty, one of the effects of poverty in a family is that they cannot think beyond today or tomorrow. If you know the typical very poor family, they wake up in the morning and they're wondering whether they'll have a next meal. And so to be able to plan for the future of the children is something that is not in their mind. They're just worried about providing food for them. However, if you do help them, as Mercy Abad says is doing, if you help them and they begin to be able to take care of their children and they be able to send them to school, then they will think about how will we be able to do this for the future. And so they will begin to think about limiting their family. So what I want to point out is that the ability to plan for one's family depends on a future orientation. It depends on the ability to think about the future. And when we help them reach that point, as Mercy does with the and other groups with microfinance, then we really do more things for them. We help them to begin to think of the future and to plan for the future. In fact, in my own understanding of poverty, when a family reaches that, then I am sure they'll get out of poverty. So developing the ability to think for the future and to plan for the future of your children is, for me, the best indication of a family getting out of poverty. So please think about that giving them the first step, as Mercy says, and giving the children the first step is really also the way forward to think of families that can plan for the future and think of limiting their families.
Thank you, Father Ben. And, you know, I don't think we can top those eloquent parting words. So at this point, I just want to thank all the panelists, Father Ben Nebres, Mahar Mangahas, Mercy Abad, and Mario Santo Domingo. It was really an inspirational morning. We're learning all about the work that you all do. I hope the rest of you who are listening in were inspired also. We've been recording this, and so at some point we'll put it up on maybe the PAASE website if you or your friends or other colleagues want to listen to all these inspiring stories too. So I hope you have a good day, and really appreciate you all sticking with us all the way to the end. And thank you very much for joining this plenary session.
Thank you. Thank you also, Francis.
Thank you, Francis.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Francis.
Bye, Mario.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you po.
Hi,
Salamat
Father
po.
Ben.
Bye.
Hi to Father
Thank you,
Bernie.
everybody.
Thank you.
Hi to Father Bernie.
Yeah.
Hi, Merce.
First.
Thank
Hi,
you,
Giselle. Bye, Giselle.